Learning PLC programming as a complete beginner can feel really hard. Trust me, I know. I've been programming PLCs hands-on for over 10 years. I started myPLCtraining back in 2016, and since then I've helped hundreds of electricians, techs, and engineers go from never having opened Studio 5000 to getting hired into controls and automation roles. But the hardest part of becoming a PLC programmer is not the advanced stuff. It is the first few weeks. The part where you don't know what software to install, you don't know if you need a real PLC sitting on your desk, and every YouTube video you click on assumes you already know something you don't. So in this video, I'm going to give you the full beginner roadmap for Allen Bradley PLC training in 2026, the exact order I would learn it in if I were starting from zero today. So let's get into it. So first, set up your environment before you try learning anything. In other words, get access to the tools that you need. So the first thing you need is a decent computer. We're talking a Windows laptop or desktop with 16 gigs of RAM, an i5 processor equivalent or higher, Windows 11 Pro preferably, or you can use home version too. Not a big deal. But you also need access to the right software. So there's a bunch of PLC software out there, and there's some great tools. You'll hear big brands like Siemens and Rockwell and GE and Modicon, Schneider, Automation Direct, Beckhoff, on and on and on. But in the US, in 2026, Allen Bradley or Rockwell Automation, the same company, has the market share. So using their software is the best place to start if you want to gain a hireable skill that is most transferable to companies here in the US. So you need to pick one platform to start with. I recommend you start with Rockwell's flagship Studio 5000 if you can get access to it, because that's the most used in the US today. So once you have that computer and you have access to the software, Studio 5000 and also FactoryTalk View is great to have, the HMI software, so that you can design graphics connected to your PLC and really get that full experience. But once you've got the software and the computer, you just need a quiet place where you can learn, you can watch training, you can practice on your computer. And you don't need to be a tech genius or a computer wizard, but you do need to know how to use the internet, download files, install those files on your machine. Some basic Windows experience along with understanding the basics of DC electricity and being able to read a schematic. If you know those three things, you are set to learn PLC programming. And I just want you to realize that it's not the smartest people necessarily that break into this field. It's the ones who learn the right skills and who are disciplined enough to stick with it and stick to the plan. Those are the ones that find the roles and find that they are valued and desired by companies in controls and automation. Okay, so next, you want to learn ladder logic like it's the alphabet. In other words, it's your starting point. There's a lot of hype and talk online about structured text and function block and other programming languages that are becoming more popular, especially with the rise of AI. These programming languages becoming more popular with PLC programmers, but ladder logic is still king in the US. Again, the reason we tell you to focus on this is it's because what employers, that's what they're hiring for. That's what they have running in their plants. They don't just go change their systems to match whatever the newest thing is every time it comes out. If something's working, they set up a production or a process in their facility that's cranking out products and making them profit. They're not going to go in and change it to the newest AI system or newest programming language. So ladder logic has been running for decades in plants, and it's still entrenched, and people are still creating new systems with ladder logic even this year. So ladder logic looks like an electrical schematic on purpose. That's why it was designed. It was designed to help controls engineers and technicians back in the 60s, 70s, 80s to transfer what they knew about electrical schematics, which at that time, relays, the devices that were doing all the automation. So they would have to have these very complex circuits all wired together with relays and timer relays and so on to get things to be automated. And so the way they would see all that is on the schematic. Ladder logic is designed to mimic those schematics, and you've got your power rail on the left side For example, here in Studio 5000, I've got a project here, power rail on the left, and then your DC negative or ground here on the right. So power flows from the left to the right. And these are contacts. If the contacts are closed, power flows through. If the contacts are open, the power cannot flow through. And so there are different paths that it can go depending on which contacts are closed. When they're closed, you turn on a bit like this. So that mimics a relay circuit with contacts and a relay coil. So learning these core instructions first is what you're going to want to focus on. So these are XIC instructions, and this is an XIO in a schematic circuit. In a relay device, these would usually be called like a normally closed contact or a normally open contact. So these mimic those types of contacts. And then of course you want to learn, these OTEs, which is a output energize device or instruction. And then there's also the latching or unlatching type coils that exist in the physical relay world. They also exist in the ladder logic. So I've said this before, but the trap you want to avoid is watching too many YouTube videos and not doing enough hands-on. The best way to do it is to learn a little bit in a video, whether it's YouTube or in a course or a program you're going through, and then try it out on the software as soon as possible. You want to transfer that from your head to your hands, and there's so many little things that you don't pick up just by watching a video of somebody doing it. You need to do it yourself. So you don't want to get trapped in just wasting hours and hours on YouTube. Get something and then try to implement it, put it into practice as soon as possible. So bits on a rung like the XIC and XIO instructions, etc., that gets you part of the way, but real programs are going to have a lot of other instructions. Mostly you're going to see timers and counters, for example, and then also things like comparisons. So next we'll talk about timers, counters, and comparison instructions. Almost every working PLC program has timers, counters somewhere. So delays for motor starts or counting runtime accumulations or sequencing steps. Every program that you will find in a plant almost inevitably is going to have some sort of timer or counter. For timers, you have the TON timer, which is a timer on delay. And for me, this is the most common type of timer that I used. It's the most intuitive, I think, because basically when the rung becomes true, the timer starts counting. And when it reaches that preset number, it's done. And then you can take that done bit and do something else. So you also have the TOF or timer off delay, which is basically the opposite of the timer on delay in that it's waiting for the rung in condition to go false. And when it goes false, then that's when it starts timing. So this could be used for like a cool down fan or something on a motor or a generator to continue timing for a certain amount of time after something stops, for example. And then you have retentive timers that you can start and stop and pause, and it will keep the amount of time that has elapsed since the beginning. And then you can continue from there when you need to. You've got the count up, the count down instructions. Real simple, counts up when you have a rung in condition if you're using the CTU, and it counts down if you're using the CTD. You can use a reset instruction to reset the counter to 0. So you'll see this on applications where you need to account. You'll see this in something like a parking garage that needs to count cars going in and cars going out to keep the total accumulated number of cars in there accurate. So in this basic example that I set up before recording this video, I've got this saying that every time this run pump 1 output turns on, we're going to count up. Now, the goal is whenever this gets to 100, we're going to turn on a maintenance light saying, hey, it's time to do maintenance on this pump. It's run 100 times so that the maintenance can come and check and make sure everything's good. Then you've got comparison instructions like equal than or greater than or less than. I've got a greater here, a less than, and you can see what I set up here is that when the tank fill percentage is greater than 92%, then we turn on this tank high level bit. Similarly, when the tank fill percentage is less than 8%, we turn on the tank low level bit. So you're going to need to know your comparison instructions. You've got less than, you've got equal to, you've got a limit to compare a value between two limits or have it within a window of values, so to speak, which can be really useful as well. And of course, learning the math instructions is useful too. In this example, I've got a multiply instruction, but it's really simple. You've got add, subtract, multiply, divide, and then some less used ones like square root or modulo or negate or absolute value. So understanding the basics of math instructions will definitely be important too for scaling things like analog inputs. Next, we want to focus on learning HMIs and variable frequency drives. You're not going to see a PLC system almost ever without some sort of HMI connection. So if the PLC is like the brain, the HMI is like the face. This is where, you've got buttons and displays that the operator can interact with. It's like having a control panel, but on a digital screen. Again, a lot cheaper to build and develop and change than a physical control panel. So here I am in FactoryTalk View Studio, which is Rockwell's primary HMI software still in 2026. And I've got this pump looking item here on the screen, and the type of thing you're going to be doing is adding graphics to the screen and then connecting those graphics to the PLC, whether you're creating some sort of animation that occurs, something changing color, or something becoming visible and invisible. So for example, let's say we wanted to have a push button, and we're going to have this push button connected to the PLC. I've already gone through the communication setup in this project to connect to Emulate controller that I've got running here on my computer with this software, Studio 5000 Logix Emulate. So there's my pretend PLC running here on my computer. Let's say we wanted to create a new tag. So I'm going to take this project that I had running in the background. I'm going to go to active. Then we will download to this Emulate controller that I just showed you a second ago. Okay, now we're going to switch back to run mode. Now this project is running. You can see this logic has got a manual control path and an auto control path. And let's say we've also got HMI manual control path. So we can add that tag there. And then in our project here, let's actually use a maintained push button so that it will hold on that value, or hold a 1 there, so that that bit is true whenever we push it until we turn it off. So we will just go to states here and add start motor. That's the caption when it's in 0 state, and this would be stop motor when it's in the 1 state. So then we go to the tag section, we click on tags, we go to online, and we look for that tag. So we'll go to the Emulate controller folder, we'll go to online, and we're going to look for this pump 1 manual control HMI tag. So that matches this tag name here. We click OK. And now we can see that value is in there connected to our push button. We click OK, and now we've got this big old button. We can make it a little smaller, put it under the motor, and then let's add some text above the motor that tells us when it's running. So we could add some text here and say running, click OK, and I'm going to choose a visibility animation, meaning it's going to either be visible or invisible. So we'll click on that and we'll leave it as the defaults, and then we'll choose the tag that's going to activate this animation. So run pump 1 will be the one we choose, which is our output that controls the pump. Now, ideally, we would have an input that tells us when the pump has been confirmed to be running, but usually it's safe to use an output to indicate that it's actually trying to run. So we'll click OK and apply, close that. Okay, so now we've got our indicator here and our control button. So let's see if this will work. I'll click save, and then I'll click this test display button. And so right now that running text that we put above the motor is not showing. Let's see what happens when we click this start motor. Okay, so now it's showing running, and now the button says stop motor if we want to stop it. We can go look at our PLC logic and see that that tag is latched on, which is pretty cool. And I will say this is actually pretty fun when you get into it, connecting these graphics to your PLC and controlling it back and forth, seeing that feedback on the screen. It's actually really fun. So then we can click stop motor, and it's no longer running. So you could actually have text that becomes visible that says stopped, for example. Okay, next, let's talk about variable frequency drives, or sometimes variable speed drives are called. VFD, drive, all means the same thing. The way I like to think about it is that it's a smart dimmer for a motor. In other words, it gives you a way to adjust the speed of a motor between a certain range instead of just being on or off. So the VFD allows you to set an exact speed and ramp it up or down gently to that set point. So basically, it's just using the frequency of the voltage it sends to the motor, and it's either increasing the speed of that sine wave or slowing it down, and then that's how you control the speed of the motor. Faster, quicker frequency or sine wave means the motor will run faster. So when you integrate that with the PLC, you've got a two-way chat basically going between the PLC and the VFD, usually connected over an Ethernet cable through an Ethernet switch like you see in this graphic. And the PLC is the one that's commanding the VFD, so you can start or stop the VFD. You can control the set point of the speed that you want the VFD to set the motor to, and the VFD then reports back how fast the motor is running, that it's running, the other electrical parameters associated with the motor. Okay, so next you want to actually build some projects from scratch, primarily the PLC logic, but if you can also build HMI graphics to go with that PLC logic, that's even better. So you could build something like a conveyor sorting system that has logic where a part comes down a line, the sensor detects that part, whether it's detecting the size or the color or something, and a diverter pushes it either to this bin or a diverter pushes it to this bin, depending on which object it is, and it could basically sort those two objects into two different bins. You could use a counter to count how many are in each and display that on the HMI, for example. Another project you could build is a 2-to-1 tank filling project, where you've got an ingredient A in one tank, ingredient B in another tank, and you have to fill the third tank with both at a certain ratio, say 2-to-1 or 3-to-1, and you have to control the valves to make sure that it's filled at the proper ratios. So you'd get to use comparison instructions, math instructions, interlocks, and then of course building those HMI graphics and connecting it to the PLC. Then you could do a traffic light intersection. Classic scenario that we've all experienced, usually controlled by a PLC. So this is a great opportunity to create some sequencing logic using timers. You can even use sensors that detect when a car is in the intersection waiting for the stoplight. We've all been in that situation where you're at the red light waiting and there's no traffic going in the perpendicular direction, and you're like, I wish this was a smarter stoplight. Well, you could actually build it with PLC logic so that when it detects that car there, it shortens the sequence cycle, for example. Again, you could build the logic, build the HMI graphics to show those lights changing colors, to show the car in place, etc. So that's the full beginner roadmap. The natural next move, once you have the picture, is to actually sit down inside Studio 5000 and see what you're working with. If you don't have access to Studio 5000, check out myPLCtraining.com. We give all our students access to Studio 5000, and we have the best programs for not only learning PLCs, HMIs, drives, but also getting hired into controls and automation. I put together a full walkthrough of Studio 5000 Logix Designer, opening it cold, navigating the interface, setting up your first project, and showing you where every tool we just talked about actually lives. So check that out. Next, if you're serious about taking the next step, that's the one to watch. The link is on the screen now, so I'll see you over there. Thanks for watching.